that guy's little musical interlude doesn't, strike the video. There's all kinds of things like that that can happen. I wanted to come out today so people could see what the city is looking like, post-storm. I forgot the pen, so we'll see if I can. Yeah, I don't know why the touch screen isn't working. They should make these gloves out of whatever material the pen is made out of. We'll leave it on the forward view here for the most part, but I mean, you can see snowpocalypse. It's a wreck. Cars can get around, I guess, but in many ways, the days after a snowstorm in New York City are often quite a bit worse than while it's snowing. Look at that. It's how to make ravioli, I guess. Agnolotti. There's so many different kinds of pasta that you've never heard of, or at least I never have. So the city is digging out. It's incredibly cold still. I got to take my gloves off to switch the camera around, so I'm not going to be doing that too much. Saw Zoran Mamdani out without a hat and without gloves. That's how you know it was a total photo op. You're not hanging out. I mean, by the way, it's warm today. I think it's like 20. That's like twice the temperature that it was the other day, but it's still cold as hell. That guy's got like a Swisher Sweet cigarillo going. Who is right that he's over at 7-Eleven like, I'll have the strawberry, Swisher Sweet. He's a tobacco connoisseur. But anyway, I keep thinking I'm done talking about Cullen, the pseudonymous super troll social engineer known as Cullen. So here, just look at this. Yeah, these cars aren't going anywhere for days, okay? You're basically socked in if you're one of these guys. Socked in, and then depending on what street. Yeah, look across the street, the plows. Look at that Prius. The thumb just worked. Okay, so now we got a method. Look at that Prius socked in. Oh wow, great, the thumb. So the index finger on these gloves is broken. How the hell does that work, Adidas? Nazi gloves. Anyway, so Cullen, he came up again yesterday. Like I said, I'm done basically talking about him. I don't want to trash the guy. And everyone's like, Jason, not everyone actually, most people seem to understand what went on there. But there's this contingent of people, right? It's weird. The reason I want to continue talking about it is because I'm making certain observations that maybe you'll find useful. Some people find the things I discuss helpful, interesting. This is information, entertainment, my opinions about things. If you like them, sponsor the show on subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. You can also go to crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com. Is this you guys' car socked in here?
No, she's trying to get a spot for herself.
Oh my God. You might as well just wait for the spring. It's gonna...
Yeah.
Holy crap. See, the other thing is you gotta be real careful shoveling snow because it's cold out here and that dude didn't look too fit, It's heart attack season. I hope nothing bad happens to him, but you just be careful if you are around in New York City and you find your vehicle socked in. You might want to abandon it. I don't know. That girl, it's going to be dark before they dig out that mountain of snow. They're crazy. But the other thing is I wanted to check out the High Line, see what's going on over there. I was over here this morning and I noticed it has opened. People were walking around up there and everything. I also noticed something else over here. So you leave New York City, look at this. even just for a little while, and stuff changes. What are these cameras? License plate readers or something?
I forgot, but I like them because you always got something smart to say.
I don't know what those cameras are doing, but I noticed that they have them and they weren't here. I never noticed them on my walks before. So what are they looking at? You know, we're living in 1984. These cameras track you everywhere you go. Who the hell knows what they're up to? There's another set over there. Can people see it? I'm glad the thumb is working. Give me back control here. Do you see those there? So I don't know what the hell that is. Facial recognition, license plate recognition, track you everywhere you go. So Cullen. Anyway, I did the whole series. People saw it. I was driving all over the country to track him down. And by the way, I didn't even plan to do that. I don't care what he does for the most part, so long as it doesn't interfere with my life or get me jammed up in court. And that's what he seemed to be attempting to do when he was threatening Barnes. See, and Barnes goes and appears on Gary Melton's show to talk about that letter. Did people see the post that I put on X? Where it's like, where did Gary get this letter, you know? Does he work for Turning Point USA? And then people say, well, I assume he got it from Andrew Clovid or whatever his name is. It's like, well, okay. Why is Turning Point USA, you know, why is Gary the clearinghouse? What the hell is that weirdo laughing at? Why is Gary the clearinghouse for, you know, otherwise private information from Turning Point USA? He's the only. Why didn't Turning Point USA release it on their own social media? They have way bigger following than Gary. It's weird, isn't it? And why didn't Gary say, hey, this was given to me directly from Turning Point USA? He's got Barnes on there when he's showing that letter. Barnes is an attorney. Shouldn't there be like full disclosure? I don't know. I don't trust those guys. And remember, Barnes is the guy that Cullen was in the tweet fight with when he's posting threats that were clearly being construed as true threats of harm, and he included my image. I was very clear with him about that. That was my issue. I wasn't threatening to sue Cullen. I said, stop including my picture in threats of true harm that you're transmitting across the wires of the internet to attorneys. It's just, could there be a more perfect lawfare setup? And by the way, even when he took it down, he waited, and then George's brother started a whole thing with lawyers at X. It was just very suspicious. So Cullen brought that all about on himself. All I've ever done prior to that was help the guy. And by the way, even given everything that happened, I didn't tell him to leave the internet, even if I did. I don't have the authority to tell anybody to leave the internet. I don't control the internet. I don't control X. I don't control YouTube. I just told him, don't put legal liability on me, or I'm going to have to sue you to stop you from doing it. It's sort of stating the obvious. It's something that anybody could or would, maybe even should do to any other person. You're going to defend yourself, your reputation, your livelihood, if somebody tries to harm you. That's all I said. Clarified my position on the matter. He chose to remove himself from the internet. So I still see all these unknown accounts. It came up yesterday because Dale Comstock, who I don't know Cullen was working with him. I've seen limited bits of what Dale has had to say in clips with Cullen. I don't know anything about the guy, but he was on Danny Jones, which is a big reach podcast. Seems to have a lot of deep state type characters on there. Ian Carroll and many others. But, Danny, he's sort of doing a Joe Rogan-ish kind of thing. Likes to have the CIA people and talk about whatever. And Dale is a, what is he? Special Forces? Something. Delta Force? He looks like a tough guy. Definitely don't mess with him. I have no beef with Dale Comstock. I don't know anything about him. But he brought up Cullen. And he said some stuff that was incorrect. He said that Cullen had testified in Congress. No, he didn't. How does Dale not know that? Maybe he made a mistake. But what else did he say? He said that he and Cullen had somehow figured out, I think this was it. People should check that Danny Jones podcast. I think what Dale Comstock said was that Dale and Cullen had determined that there were Ukrainian snipers in Butler, Pennsylvania. What evidence supports that? I mean, that's an explosive claim that a lot of people, a lot of like Trump supporting people were like, oh, that's something to tweet. So there was a lot of tweet activity on that Dale Comstock claim. I think that's absolutely false. But it got me thinking more about Cullen and what a limited hangout he really was. Is it snowing again? They said there's a chance of another snowstorm this weekend. Sketchy. So let's see what's going on up here on the High Line. Oh, now is the thumb no longer working? There we go. So it's open. Slippery on the stairs. But so what am I saying about Cullen being a limited hangout? First of all, it was kind of pompous and incorrect, these stairs are slippery, for him to say, oh, I'm the guy who solves Vegas. Let's just get one thing straight. He did not actually solve Vegas. He did reveal a lot of interesting and important things about it. But when you look at it critically, it was a limited hangout. Oh, see, now it's closed over there. You can't go down that way. I guess they're still shoveling it out. That's quite a job. But if you think about it, Cullen was really a limited hangout on Vegas. I mean, it was interesting, the stuff about the helicopters, and I think that was accurate. They're definitely, he had evidence that supported the claims about helicopters being there. But I've already said that I think that was being done in support of MBS and maybe even with intelligence from MBS. But he solved Vegas would mean, to me something more than just saying there were Saudi helicopters there. Because he poo-pooed the whole Jason Buff being potentially a body double for Mohammed bin Salman. Never actually presented proof. I mean, he did support the theory that it was an assassination attempt against bin Salman, but he never presented any evidence that bin Salman was there. Never explained what these three women in the hotel room with, what was his name? The dead guy in the hotel room who they say was in charge of shooting up the whole place. Never explained what those three women were doing there. Didn't even get their last names. Laura Loomer found that. Never explained anything about the other Stephen Paddock. Never explained anything about what the other shootings reported around Las Vegas were all about. So there's huge elements of Vegas that are a total blind spot to Cullen, and he's the self-proclaimed guy who solved the whole thing. So, I mean, that's sort of a limited hangout, isn't it? It certainly could be. he didn't explain the whole thing, so is it solved? And then, so Dale Comstock yesterday was talking not so much about Vegas, or at least I didn't hear that. Look at all those socked-in cars. He was talking about Butler, Pennsylvania. And, you know, it's true, Cullen did identify that shot coming down the back rail, but I don't recall him ever saying anything about a Ukrainian sniper. And, you know, Cullen and I, we were still working together throughout Butler, PA. I originally fired him from the show in December of 2024, and we had moved off of Butler by that time. We were talking about, the last episode, as I recall, was something to do with space. I don't remember the details, but I never heard him say anything about Ukrainian snipers in Butler, PA. I guess he might have revisited that sometime after December 2024. But what was the evidence behind that? It seems like an explosive claim. So I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that. And I mean, just the fact that he would say that, the fact that Dale would say that Cullen testified in Congress, that's totally wrong. How did he get that wrong?
He tried
to passing another person with a stabilizer. I don't know if he's live streaming. So I don't know, did they do a huge job of shoveling this off, or did snow not stick to this surface perhaps? No, I guess they shoveled it, because look, you got a sidewalk up there. Good job, Parks Department. It is cold as hell out here. So yeah, and then, you know, people, it's so strange about Cullen, because it reignited the whole where's Cullen? And it's like, I don't understand how people could simultaneously, you know, claim to be interested in this topic of where's Cullen and not know by now. Maybe this is just the way X works, because it's me searching on my X, but when I search for Cullen, some of the most common things that are returned are my posts, my recent posts about where's Cullen. I made, like, I don't even know, 8 or 9 or 10 videos, kind of a lot of videos that are free for people to watch. Now, admittedly, that series of Where's Cullen, it was where he isn't. I even mentioned that during the series, that was the purpose of it, because what I did was, I didn't start making any videos about Where's Cullen until I knew where he was. The whole thing came about when Diligent Denizen, another fake named social engineering person who claims to do one thing and then does another, I hear him on his Twitter Spaces saying, I rely on evidence. And then when this whole thing with Gary getting the letter, he said, well, I assume it came from Andrew Clovet. And I was like, well, are assumptions now evidence? Why doesn't somebody ask Gary? And if he got it from Andrew Clovet, doesn't that open a whole litany of questions, like why is Clovet giving this kind of evidence to Gary? Why isn't he putting that letter out himself? You know, if there was nothing weird going on, wouldn't Andrew Clovet just say, look, here's the letter? It's almost like he's like leaking it through Gary. It's just suspicious to me. And our buddy Diligent Denizen saying, no, I only rely on evidence, and you know, he kicks people off his show for speculating. He's just I don't trust him at all. And he's the guy who started the whole Where's Cullen? And then when I started saying he's at his house, he didn't disappear. You have no evidence that he disappeared. Diligent Denizen is making up nonsense as much as anybody else. So when that first started, I knew Cullen hadn't disappeared. I didn't know, but I knew, to quote somebody else. I had a very strong feeling that he hadn't disappeared, and I knew there was certainly no evidence that he had disappeared. The only evidence was that he had stopped posting right at, like within an hour or so of him and I having this big argument. And I had a very strong feeling, based on lots of other evidence, that Cullen was cooking up something sinister, a social engineering ploy aimed at me. And that when I, part of that ploy required him to befriend me again. This is the way they like to operate. Infiltrate, pretend to be an ally, and then stab you in the back. That's what I think Cullen was trying to do. And when I aggressively warned him that if he... Is it closed up here? When I aggressively warned him that if he persisted in putting legal liability on me, I would sue him, and that if he didn't remove the thing, I'd bring legal action, and that legal action would force me to reveal his identity. Now the thumb isn't working anymore. I didn't threaten to reveal his identity, and in fact, the way I've behaved over the past several months should make it clear that I've actually taken great pains. I've gone to great lengths to protect his identity when I had no obligation to do that. I could tell everybody what his real name is if I wanted to right now. But I'm not interested in doing that. I'm not interested in harming him. I'm interested in defending myself. So there's really no reason why he would disappear from the internet. Now, some people have speculated that his comment about stomach cancer could indicate that he has stomach cancer. I hope that's not the case. I certainly don't want him to suffer. Don't want him to be sick. I don't think so, though, because remember, he frequently had that's his style, to speak like that, give these really specific examples. And I think he was just being dramatic and making a specific example like that. Actually, let's go over here. It's freezing. So maybe that's possible, but I mean, look, even if it is, if that happened, why wouldn't he tell the thousands of people who obviously appear to care about him? Some of them email me. Many of them have been paying him lots of money. Why wouldn't he say, hey, everyone, I have an announcement to make, a personal reason, health, whatever it is, I'm going to be not producing content for the next 4 months. I appreciate everybody sponsoring me. I mean, frankly, if he was having that kind of medical condition, first of all, why would that stop him from sitting at a desk producing content? If he was so sick that he couldn't go on, didn't seem to be that way. He was standing in his driveway yelling at me. I don't know, again, there's no evidence that he is suffering from that. The statement was weird, I agree. But my point is, it was just very wrong, in my opinion, for him to completely abandon the people who had financially supported him and not give any kind of announcement whatsoever. I think the only explanation is that it was a component of a social engineering plan that he was trying to execute against me. And every time he comes back up, I feel like it's another effort to do that. Now, my presumption right now is that Dale Comstock just made a mistake. Like I said, I don't know the guy. I don't know what he knows. Maybe he thinks Cullen did testify in Congress. Maybe he's just mistaken. But that definitely did not happen. In fact, Cullen blew it, pissed off people in Congress who counted on him, who went out on a limb to try to get that committee to allow him to testify. I spoke to people in Congress who know about this, and they said Cullen blew it because he wanted to appear by Zoom. And he was like, oh, some medical examiner appeared by Zoom. But I think he was like, I forget the circumstances of why they let the medical examiner appear by Zoom, but they said, look, no, either you come in here or we're not going to talk to you. And, he's using a fake name. Congress is like, who is this guy? Get him the hell out of here. So he blew it. He didn't testify before Congress. That's the other problem with using a fake name, is that if it ever comes down to doing anything official, why should anybody believe this person? They're not even telling us their real name. So, look, I get it. There's a lot of different people who have different reasons for not wanting to use their real name. There are people who communicate with me through DM and not through their real name. They've been victims of stalking in the past. They have jobs that they don't want to jeopardize, protect their family. That's fine. That's your business to do that. But don't go starting fights with lawyers and putting legal liability on me if that's the way you want to operate. And again, it's not a threat to expose his real name. I'm just saying you put yourself into a certain category of like, oh, I'm trying to protect myself from legal liability, so I'm not using my real name. You can't do that and put legal liability on somebody else. You can do it, but obviously I'm going to defend myself, and so that's why he left, But again, he could carry on. He could have still gone on Tommy's podcast with Dale Comstock, and Dale also said nobody knows where Cullen is. Now, really? Because I know where he is. I put out that whole video series. I knew where he was 5 weeks ago, whenever that was. I presume he's still there. He's not, selling his house or move. Maybe he is. But this whole notion that like, oh, yeah, he exposed the German, or what was it, the Egyptian jets, and then he disappeared. It's a big mystery. No, that is bullshit. And frankly, it makes me think that the whole Egyptian jet thing, what happened with that? Wasn't Candace Owens all over that? Was that nonsense? Did she get that from Cullen? I don't know what happened with the Egyptian jets, but, Cullen wanted me to get some $500 subscription to Flight Tracker. He always wanted me to pay for stuff. And I told him, he said he doesn't want to use credit cards because the CIA and his real name and everybody this and that. I don't think that's it. And I said, why don't you start an LLC and get a corporate credit card through the LLC and do all your stuff through that? And he's like, man. Just had, I don't know, he never really gave a reason why he didn't do that. And then I learned he does have an LLC. So, does this seem like somebody who is dealing with me on the up and up? And so Dale, he's this special operator who is selected for Delta Force through all these criteria that are so secret he can't even tell us, but he thinks nobody knows where Cullen is. Wouldn't he have seen my video series or reach out to me if he's at all interested in where Cullen is? I don't know. There's Pfizer. It seems weird. It just seems like a contradiction. How could the guy be so capable and such a problem solver, elite Delta Force, and he's like, nobody knows where Cullen is? And I've already put it out where it is. So then I got other messages from people. Speaking of contradictions, I get these messages sometimes from people where they're like, hey, I don't like you, I don't like your videos, but I want to watch this Cullen video, make it free. It's like, well, gee, what a tempting offer. Why would I do that, And then some people are like, I'm retired, A lot of people, they take their sponsor exclusive videos and then after a week they make them free. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm not one of those people, Either you want to watch the video or you don't. And if you want to watch it, become a sponsor on subscribestar.com or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Or you could also, I need to sponsor a working thumb. You could also become a sponsor on crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, or you could follow me on X at JG_CSTT. Subscribe there, become a sponsor there. You can do any of those things. And if you're not, it's like either you're interested in knowing about Cullen or you are not interested in knowing about Cullen. And if you're interested, $5 is not that much. I mean, did you buy a beer this month? Did you buy a pack of cigarettes, a coffee at Starbucks, anything like that? I don't know. But all of that stuff is $5. And by the way, spoiler alert, if you don't want to spend the money but you're interested in knowing, I found Cullen. He was at his house, as I expected. I drove right to his house. There he was. It's so windy now. He was at his house, and I spoke to him. Here's the real spoiler.
I don't even know if I want to get into this with you, man. You're obviously hostile.
That's why I quit. I quit so that I did not have to confront you.
He told you right there. He quit. He gave you the reason. Oh, God, it's so cold. He quit so that he did not have to confront me. Now, I think that's not really true, because there was no need to confront me. As far as I'm aware, the confrontation ended. I told him, and if you're interested, it's all in those videos there. Anybody can look at it. Most of them are free. I told him, take the thing down. There's a whole texting back and forth. He takes it down, and I said, okay, let's not talk again. And so long as you don't post about me, there'll be no need. And then he just completely removed his social media. Luckin Coffee. I thought the name was something else for a minute, but he chose to remove his social media. I didn't tell him to do that. I have no authority to tell him or anyone to do that. He chose to do that. He also changed up the story that he quit so that he wouldn't have to confront me. And then he was like, good job. Like it's my fault. First of all, I don't care what he does, post or not post. You know, he's got this idea in his head that he's some visionary hero of the internet, and it's my fault that the world will no longer benefit from the genius of John Cullen because I told him if he doesn't remove a post that's clearly intended to get me kicked off of X, that I'd take legal action against him, and then that legal action would include naming him and serving him with legal process, which would inherently reveal his identity on a public docket. I didn't say I'm gonna dox you, but if I sued him, I guarantee individuals would find that lawsuit, his name would be on it, and people would put it out. Oh yeah, that's looks closed, that side of the High Line too, so we'll go back this way. So now we have Dale Comstock coming on the Danny Jones, I think, podcast with all crazy stories. By the way, Cullen was also a limited hangout on Butler, PA, because he said, okay, there's a shot coming down the back. That's a good observation. But then he made up some nonsense. Was that always Sephora? That might be new. He comes up with this nonsense that Crooks was killed on his bicycle. What are you talking about? Where did you get that? You know, and he kept calling the guy on the roof Crooks. People told me that they he blocked them for, saying it was Yurik on the roof. Why does he want to cover that up? There's so much evidence that it was Yurik on the roof. Not just that the police didn't want to give me the original photograph from Detective Gian Vito's phone. You had all these messages from a person purporting to be Yurik's sister saying that he's still alive. And I said, well, she was like, oh, stop talking about it, Jason. Here's a picture of him with cats. I was like, how does that prove that he's still alive? That could have been taken on January 12th, 2024. July 12th. Could have been taken a day before. Just because it doesn't exist in the public domain. Look at these mountains of snow. I said to her, why don't you just do a podcast with him, have Maxwell Urich appear, and say, Jason's an idiot, I'm still alive. He hasn't done that. Where the hell has Urich been? I mean, you might say the same thing about Thomas Crooks. Where has he been? But he's not the one who's trying to prove that he wasn't there. For whatever reason, he wants everyone to believe that he's dead. Obviously, if he wasn't, that would raise all kinds of questions. But there's no evidence that it was Crooks. All the evidence points to it being somebody other than Crooks on the roof. Who is the person at the lawyer with his father? Why does his father even need a lawyer if he's dead, if the kid is dead? Who is the masked up individual at the lawyer's place with the father? Same person who's shouting like a bitch at the Fox News people when they're at Walmart. Same person who's seen walking around the family house. The sister doesn't live with the family. She's older than him. She was already out of high school, living somewhere else. Walk through here. So, I mean, again, it seems like a limited hangout. Now, this is a little dangerous to the equipment to go from the cold to a room temperature thing. It might fog the lenses, but we'll see what happens. Now, wait a minute. I think I lost signal in here one time in the past.